How's everybody doing today? All right, I've been excited about this for a while.
That was lame.
Yeah. Can we do a little better? I mean, we got some really notable people here. How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
All right.
Can I try one more time? Can I try?
Yeah, please.
Can I try? You are at the Super Bowl on your company's dime. How are you doing?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
There we go. All right. Well, yeah, we are here at Super Bowl. It's not often that you get to share the stage with two people who are truly, truly the best in the world at their craft. I have Matthew Berry here, and I've got Josh Richards here.
But, just to give you an idea of scale, just for one quickly, between Josh and myself, we have 26,075,000 followers on TikTok.
You got like 75,000?
75,000.
Yeah.
I got 75,000.
I think I got 200.
Thanks for picking that up, Josh.
No problem. No problem.
That's right. Just saying, between the two of us.
Yeah.
Massive TikTok scale.
All right, so let's get this started. So for many in the room, these guys need no introduction. But for some of you that might have been living under a rock for a while, let's start out with some introductions just so we kind of level set. So we'll start with you, Matthew.
So my name's Matthew Berry, and I've been Entertainment Weekly, Sports Business Journal, New York Times, many places have called me the face of fantasy football. I'm probably the person that is most associated with fantasy football. As I was introduced, I am NBC Sports Senior Fantasy Football and Sports Betting Analyst. I'm on Football Night in America. As we were walking up, I heard him talking about the ratings. Football Night in America is the second highest rated show on all of television, not the second highest rated sports show, the second highest rated show. The only thing that rates higher than that is the actual football game itself. So I'm part of the pregame show on NBC Sports, and I do a daily show for Peacock, which also streams as a podcast. I do a Sunday morning show for Peacock and CNBC, the fantasy football pregame with Matthew Berry. And I'm a New York Times bestselling author, and I am a founder of Fantasy Life, which we'll talk about some today, which is a sports betting and fantasy football content and media company. It's doing real well.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm Josh Richards. I got my start on TikTok when I was 13 years old and been able to pivot that into a Gen Z media / production company called Crosscheck Studios I was able to found, where we team up with Gen Z influencers and really try to leverage them and be able to bring them into more mainstream media. So, yeah.
Right on. So, Matthew, you are arguably the most notable name in fantasy football. How did you become the guy in this?
Yeah, I think, first off, I've been much like Josh. I started at a very young age. I've been playing since I was 14 years old. But I think the key thing is that fantasy football is very stats driven, fairly nerdy, kind of dry. And so as I sort of looked at the landscape, I'm like, I'm really good with stats and I'm really good with X's and O's, but the thing that I do better than anyone else in the world, that I'm literally the best in the world, is talking about myself. And so I decided to really lean into that. And so if you've ever read my columns or seen me on TV or seen my podcast, it's half about the fantasy advice, which is pretty good. And I get a lot more right than I get wrong, but also it's a lot about me. It's a lot about me. And so, this is something Josh and I were talking about just before we came on stage here, is it's important to be authentic. And the feedback that I get a lot, I was at ESPN for 15 years before I came over to NBC this past year. And, ESPN did like brand studies on me and everything like that. They're like, and I rated, ESPN told me I rated the highest of all the ESPN personalities on guy I'd most like to have a beer with, which I took as a massive compliment, because I'm just like, I'm not trying to come down from, high on up and talk down to people. I relate to them. I'm a fellow fantasy player. Like I've played it my entire life. And so I complain about the same calls. I root for the same things, and I speak their language. And so I think that is why, I'm a fantasy player who made it, as opposed to some talking head, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So last month we actually met. Our relationship has moved along very quickly, I would say. But we met last month and we were having lunch in Vegas, and a guy just came up to the table, and this like really hit it home for me. He goes, "You've changed my life, Matthew Berry. Like, fantasy football is real to people, and it's important to people." And I thought that was a huge measure of how impressive you are and how much you reach people.
I appreciate that. Fantasy football is a passion. The people that play it, and it's a massive audience, right? Over 50 million people play it. And the people that do play fantasy football, they are, compared to average sports fan, they are younger, they are more affluent, they are college, they have a higher percentage of college educated, they are early adopters, they are tech savvy, they are more brand aware, they are more brand loyal, they are stickier, and so it's a really important audience that continues to grow. And so the people that it's amazing. I have a partnership with BetMGM, and I have, even though BetMGM has deals with other celebrities that are much more famous than me, that if I walked into a bar with those other people, people would rush to them well before they came to me. But I convert better for them than any of the other influencers they work with. And I know my numbers versus some of the other influencers that work at some of the other companies. And it also compares very well to people that are much more famous than me, because my fan base both understands that, and they're like, I want to beat that guy. And if I'm telling you to bet, it's what I like Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 touchdown passes on Sunday. They buy that versus some celebrity that's like, oh, that guy was just paid. And I will say, I think that's a big reason why Josh resonates with his audience as well. Is my kids are all massive fans as well, and I follow you on all your platforms. Is because when you're watching Josh, you're like, that's Josh. It doesn't come across as phony. Yeah. And so I think that's why I resonate as well, hopefully.
Yeah, and a very similar question to you, obviously, different type of expertise. But, I mean, what you've accomplished in the time that you have is astounding. What drove you to do this, and what do you think differentiates you from other people that do what you do?
Yeah. So for me, it really all started, I always have to give a big shout out to my sister when I tell this story, but she put me on the app TikTok when I was 13, 14 years old. Then it was called Musical.ly. And very quickly, I just became very infatuated with the app. I always loved numbers. My dad was a math teacher, so the game of scaling an account online to me was just number problems, you know what I mean? And so me and my sister were going into the live stream sector of the app and finding the highest paying customers on the live stream platform, because they'd actually give that information out. So we'd go and target those people. She would be sitting beside me while I was live streaming, and she went and followed every single person on the list through my account. They'd get notifications that this random Josh Richards kid followed him and that he was live. So they'd come on over, and we were just kind of going direct to consumer, targeting the highest paying people. And from there, slowly started gaining a following and realizing there was a lot more business I could do with this social media following than kind of meets the eyes. It's not just posting videos and dancing and looking cute and winking at people, right? So from there, I was able to meet with some really great people like Chris Sawtell, who's out in the audience somewhere, one of the only old dinosaurs in our company, because it is a Gen Z company, but I think he's 36 or something, so so yeah, we went
the wrong crowd to say that.
I was hoping everyone here had good humor.
Get him.
But yeah, so we really decided to team up together and start focusing on how we could continue to enable Gen Z influencers to show off their talents and more than just, being online on TikTok. How can they go and turn that audience into either a makeup brand, or how can they go and pivot that into a media company like we've been able to build, or if they want to go and start their own stuff in crypto or to help with investing, like we have a venture fund and we do angel investing as well. So we've really been able to create this company that kind of services Gen Z in any way possible.
I want to, delve into that a little bit further. So, I mean, so many of the people, like you had said, you kind of joked, winking and looking pretty and all that sort of stuff. So many of your contemporaries don't have the depth that you do to go into all those things. What actually made you think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to build a media company. I'm going to build an energy drink. These are not typically what people in your space do. What got you in that direction?
Yeah, for me, it was looking at social media and looking at the average lifespan of a social media creator. For a lot of them, it's a year to 2 years max. And unless you do something with that following, unless you're able to continuously evolve and give more depth of who you are personally, they're not going to want to stick around. They've seen your face. They've seen you wink, like you said. They don't need to see that a million times. So for me, it was really capturing that lightning in the bottle I had. And I knew if I was going to act on something, I had to act on it quick. So that is why we started founding companies and trying to use our assets and following to really build outside of the social media world.
And I mean, we're here at the Super Bowl, very NFL driven event. You are not here just because you have 27 million followers on TikTok. You genuinely love
I have
sports.
75K.
Yes.
Yeah,
And he
mine's
has
the
7.
26.
Let's-
His is the
let's
75.
not-
Get it right. Come on.
Correct. But you truly walk the walk. How do you resonate with sports? Why is that such a great thing for you? I know you have a partnership with Amazon. Maybe talk a little bit about that and where your affinity for sports grew out of.
Yeah, I mean, that's been something I've loved since I was a little kid. I played every single sport growing up. I was a big hockey player because I'm from Toronto, but as well played football through middle school and did cross country and track and volleyball and badminton and everything I could get my hands on. So I just always knew this was something I wanted to do with my content, be able to show this side of me that I feel you don't really get to see from dancing. And that's kind of when, I guess this past few years decided to really make that pivot. Like we kind of talked about, showing that authenticity is really important. And I think it allows people to relate to me on a more friendship type of relationship than a creator being up here and their follower being down there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a trait that both of you guys share. The relatability to your audiences is what endears you both. I
just want to comment off of that real quickly. I mean, that's the thing that I think is important, is that what you did, and I think what I've done as well is that if too many people come out and they're like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast, and by the way, and here's my merch store, and you're just like, no. Build an audience, build a following, and then once they follow you and they love you, then they're happy to buy whatever it is. Like, then you're not selling to them, because then that's my guy, like whether it's fantasy football and fantasy life and Matthew Berry or Josh Richards or whatever, too many people I think try to, you have to build that brand affinity first, and then it's not selling. Then they're like, hey, I'm a Matthew Berry fan. Hey, I'm a fantasy life fan. Or I'm a fantasy football player. I want to wear this because I want people to know that I'm part of this community, as opposed to merch. I haven't even heard your podcast yet, I think a lot of creators that make that mistake. And I think sometimes brands don't think that full step through.
Well, let's go a little deeper down the road with you and what you've created. So obviously, as you told everybody, you have a company called Fantasy Life, a media company. We at Influential are super excited about it. We met a month ago. Like I said, we're announcing a large-scale partnership on Friday in the Sporting News, so you guys all look out for that. But please tell this audience what it's all about, and what you identified as this specific space that made you go, you know what? There's a lot of sports media out there. What am I doing that's unique, that's really going to break out differently?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, I felt like just the same as Josh, that I thought there was a need, right? That I think we're in a time period, whether it is because of the streaming networks or podcast networks or social media and channels that are continuing to come up, that and sports betting companies come into, there's never been a greater need for content and authentic quality content than ever before. And there's more content need than qualified content creators, candidly. And so the idea was I wrote a book called Fantasy Life that was a New York Times bestseller that did really well for me. And so I wanted to build off that brand, and how can I do more with that brand? And so what we've done is we've created a media and content company all around fantasy advice. And again, it's by fantasy players for fantasy players. We started it a year ago, and we've had tremendous success. We have a newsletter with over 300,000 subscribers with a 55% open rate and a 9.5% click-through rate, which I knew nothing about newsletters 12 months ago, but I've since learned those are crazy numbers. We do a 5-day-a-week show for SiriusXM. They have 38 million subscribers. We do it on their fantasy sports channel, which is a top 10 channel for them. We do the 11 to 1 Monday through Friday show, Eastern, which is obviously, of course, drive time on the West Coast. We do a 4-day-a-week show for Amazon on their new AMP platform and help them launch that. We helped KFC. We did some custom video at the beginning of the year for KFC to help make people aware of their family value meal. And so we've just done a bunch of different things in terms of content and continuing to expand. We have a very healthy Discord and a growing YouTube channel. We don't have 26 million followers on TikTok, but we do have over 3 million social media followers between all of our platforms that we do access. And what's interesting is that there are creators, and your audience is amazing and passionate, but just in general, there are creators out there with bigger audiences, but every single one that follows me, like I have over 2 million myself, like across my platforms, like the people that follow me because they trust me to give them fantasy advice. They trust me when I tell them, like, hey, this is a great sandwich. This is a movie you need to see. Whatever it is, this is where you should place your bets. And so it's a twofold process of trying to create a media company that can create authentic fantasy and sports betting content for other platforms, and then also for our own platforms. We do 2 million visits a month on fantasylife.com that we literally launched 6 months ago. And we have a bunch of free tools that help us with both SEO and then also, feed into our ecosystem, because they come, they search, they find the tools, they come to the tools, then they sign up for the newsletter, and then we can monetize them off the newsletter through various avenues. So that's the idea behind Fantasy Life, and we continue to grow. We're up to 9 full-time employees 6 months, 6 months later.
Well, we've got obviously 2 entrepreneurs here, divergent paths. So at 21, you are a Gen Z founder of a media company. What does that mean to you? And this company, Crosscheck Studios, that you've created, what do you see as the future for this?
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean to me? It means everything. I've been someone that's loved business since I was 5 years old. I was hanging up posters around my town and going and picking weeds for $2. So this is something that I've always wanted to really do. And being someone myself that came up in social media when it was really the Wild West and there weren't these people that were honest and looking out for you, or even agencies like CAA or UTA coming in to sign the talent, I watched a lot of my friends and myself get ripped off or go on tour and have our tour managers run away with the money, and just a lot of these horror stories you hear in social media in the entertainment industry. So to be able to build out a media company that's really going to be able to bridge the gap between the social media world and the mainstream media world is really what I want to do. There's a lot of people that don't take the youth seriously, and they kind of put us in a box, especially with the social media, and they look at these creators and think, they're just turning on a camera and doing a 15-second video. How hard can it be? But they don't see all the work that goes into behind that, or all the networking they're doing, or how they're working with their brand partners, and so far and so forth. So I'm just very excited to 3, 4, 5 years down the line be able to show the world how talented Gen Z is and really what we can do.
Also, I think you're very humble for not even mentioning this, but I'll mention this to you guys because it will resonate. So one of his partners in this is Mark Wahlberg. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and how you're kind of taking different generational approaches and bringing it together. Yeah,
for sure. So one of my favorite things to do is kind of make people say WTF. I don't know if we're allowed to swear, so I'm not going to swear. But you're
allowed.
Okay, so make people say what the fuck. I love that. I love when people do that. That's why I teamed up with Barstool. People didn't expect it. That's why we went and teamed up with Mark, because people didn't expect it. And I know I'm young, right? I'm not ignorant to that, but I needed that stamp of approval to be able to get into the entertainment industry, and I wanted to be able to get into the world of TV and film with our production company. We're working on sports shows and doing stuff with Prime Video next year, where we're going to be releasing shows and launching shows. So I really need someone to be able to take me around Hollywood and say, hey, I believe in this kid. I think he's smart. I think he has the right head on his shoulders and the right ideas to really build it something cool. So that's really why we had to team up with someone like Mark, and I've loved being able to work with him. He's been able to really help me and kind of shepherd me into what I am today, and I hope to keep learning from him.
Has he given you any pieces of advice in particular that have stuck with you?
Yeah, he really gets on me about waking up at 4 a.m. and going and bench pressing. So I gotta make sure I keep doing that.
Done that yet.
No, as you can tell, I haven't. If I did, I would need like a refund on my workout schedule or something.
All right. Well, this question's for both of you. So obviously, we're at a critical moment in American culture. The Super Bowl is so important to us. You guys are both personal brands. Coming to a place like this, I'll start with you, Matthew. What do you look to achieve, and how do you utilize a week like this to help with everything that you're doing in your career?
I mean, mostly I just want Josh to help me with my TikTok. It's really just the whole point I took this.
We'll get dancing after this.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fantastic. No, in all seriousness, for me, it's just about trying to meet more people. And it's a very simple question. Whenever I meet anyone, like, how can I help? How can I be of help? How can I, and I guess specifically this audience, like, look, the fantasy football audience, the sports betting audience is a key demographic. It's a massive audience. It's a very sticky audience. It's one that has a lot of buying influence. And so how can I help you guys reach that? How can I help you craft a message that resonates with them, that will come off as authentic, that won't seem like just, oh, fantasy's popular, and so here's just somebody talking about fantasy, right? And like, you see some of the sports betting commercials, and they've got like a big celebrity in it, and like, I'm like, I love that big celebrity. That big celebrity's movies are awesome. That person's never put a bet down on their life, and so I think sometimes that when you probably know this, and I think we've all experienced that, when you see something inauthentic, it doesn't resonate. It doesn't get the message across that people want. So my goals here are just to meet as many people and continue to talk about fantasy life. We're excited about the partnership with Influential. We're excited about a lot of the partnerships that we have coming up that we've announced as well. NBC's been incredibly supportive. One of the reasons I left ESPN, people were talking about, WTF, right? I think people were shocked that I left ESPN. I was there for 15 years. And people were shocked. And the reason that I left was because NBC said two things. Number one, we'll put you on Football Night in America, and we'll let you do anything you want with fantasy life. So I'm like, okay, wait, you're going to put me on the biggest platform in sports other than the actual game broadcast, and I'm past my playing days. So you're going to put me on the biggest platform possible for my world, in the world of sports, and then you're also going to be supportive of my startup, of this media company, and we're partnering in different ways, and we've got some fun announcements coming up with that. And so for me, it's just continuing to meet and learn meet as many people as I can and learn as much as I can while promoting that message. Yeah.
And how about you?
You want to say that question again? I got so lost in that.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
Did I filibuster too much?
Yeah.
Or no, I was just locked in on your story, man. It was great.
No, that's why my TikTok sucks. Is I'm going too long.
I was like 6 seconds. You know what I mean?
Right. I just need 6 seconds. Damn it. Okay. All right. I learned another lesson from Josh.
So basically, because this week is such a critical moment in American sports, obviously the most critical week, you have a personal brand. You're out here doing things. What are you looking to accomplish, and why is a week like this so important for someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for me because this is the beginning of really the NFL starting to show a lot of love, I think, towards the creator side. And for us to have the ability to come down here, film our content, as well as meet with all the great people that are coming out here, all the different businesses that we can work with and work together in elevating both ourselves. I think it's a lot like we were saying. It's just saying hello, getting to meet people, figuring out how we can both work together and help each other and lift each other up. So, that's really that.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about sports betting. Obviously, you're known mostly for fantasy football, but also sports betting. As I was telling you when the first time I saw you on NBC, everybody, all the coaches and all the experts on there had their prognostications. You beat everybody substantially. So that world is obviously something that you're very clued into and intent on. So there's so many things happening in that space right now. States one by one are coming into it, and there's these big companies that are coming in. You obviously have a partnership with BetMGM. What do you see happening in that space over the next couple of years?
I think it just becomes more and more mainstream, right? It just becomes more a part of everyday life. Like when I started with fantasy football, it was like, oh, it's this nerdy thing that kids in their mom's basements, wearing a black t-shirt, it's kind of this nerdy thing. And now it's like this mainstream thing that, grandmas play and kids play and, celebrities play and politicians and everyone from A to Z plays. And so I think you will start to see it become more and more mainstream. And it's just sort of something, it's like this week as you're at parties, you're like, who you like, Chiefs or Eagles this week. But I think, in 2 years, it'll be like, what do you think? Do you got the Chiefs plus 1.5? Or like, it'll just become much more, I think, ingrained in our society because it's fun. We are a country that likes to root. Just in general, we like to root, whether it's for the guy to get the girl in the romantic comedy or the mom to win the dishwasher on a game show or the Chiefs or Eagles to beat each other, whatever. We are a country that likes to root in almost every aspect, right? It's the reason why, reality shows are as popular as they are. And so what sports betting does is it gives you a rooting interest in things that you might not care about. Like you've probably not thought about the fact, you've probably not thought about what color Gatorade will be poured on the winning coach after the game. But if you think it will be orange, you can get that at plus 400 on BetMGM right now. And jokes aside, like you would not believe the kind of sweat where you're sitting there going like, okay, what color is the Gatorade? Right? And so I just think like it's fun, like, and everyone should bet within their limits and everything like that. But like you throw $10 down or whatever it is that you can afford to make it interesting for yourself. I think it will become much more mainstream. And as a result of that, just to play it forward for 1 second here, becoming more mainstream and more acceptable. We're already seeing more and more and more. That then I think there's opportunities for brands to attach themselves to that because then it becomes a hobby, right? It's a hobby, and just the way that you might attach yourself to, kids playing in the park or, computer games or whatever it is. It's a hobby that a massive amount of people play. And so right now, the only brands that are associated with betting are the actual betting brands, the BetMGMs, the DraftKings, the FanDuels of the world. But I believe there's an opportunity for brands to engage with sports betting or some sort of gaming, whether it's fantasy or a free-to-play game that gets their brand, not just slapping their logo on a website, but integrating into that experience.
I was going to say, do you have what plus 1.5 or minus 1.5? I need to know. I got to get my locks in here.
I like the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs to win. But if you're with me and you think the Chiefs win, the better bet is actually betting on Patrick Mahomes to win MVP because he's plus 340, and it's very hard to believe that the Chiefs win and Patrick Mahomes doesn't win MVP because the last time they won, Damian Williams should have been the MVP and Patrick Mahomes still won. So I would actually, if you think the Chiefs are going to win, instead of taking the 1.5, I would say just bet Patrick Mahomes at plus 340, even better odds, and go Chiefs.
You know what's killing me right now? I remember a month ago I asked you for some specific advice, and you had said because the Buffalo game never happened, the Buffalo Cincinnati game didn't happen, they hadn't adjusted the rating for the Chiefs yet.
The odds.
The odds. Yeah, sorry about that.
The odds on the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl didn't change when they canceled that game. It ultimately basically meant the Chiefs were going to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs because the Bengals-Bills game that got canceled, that could have had an effect on the number one seed. And so I'm like, and the books haven't adjusted the odds because now the Chiefs have a much better chance of getting the Super Bowl because they are locked into being the number one seed because that game got canceled. And so I said, yes, put a lot of money on the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Hopefully you did, and we're one game away.
I didn't. I'm listening to him next time, though. Also, I want to be cognizant because I want questions from the audience. I know you guys have a lot to ask. Do we have more than 5 minutes left? Can I ask any more questions or anybody? 5 minutes? All right, so let's go ahead and get into some audience questions because I'm sure these two very impressive dudes, there's some stuff you guys want to know. So go ahead. Anybody have any questions? Right there.
Matthew, been a 06010 downloader for like 10 plus years, so a big fan.
Thank you. God bless.
And can you share any examples of like great brand connections to their fans, to their audiences through fantasy that you've been a part of?
Great brand. Well, you know what? Honestly, like I feel like I know KFC was very happy. So I'll give an example from what we just did with Fantasy Life. So KFC really wanted to get the message out about their family value meal, and that it's it's a good value and it's quick and easy, and when you're on the go, and that they identified sports fans and dads. Candidly, they're like, you know what, like you've got a lot of dads, and dads don't want to cook, so it's just easy to like go to KFC, get their family value meal. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's going to feed the whole family. And so what we did is they did a takeover of our website of fantasylife.com, and instead of just like slapping KFC everywhere, what we did is we put a bunch of different integrations, and we did a kind of over the top bold call of the week. And so it was like, leave the chicken to KFC, bold call of the week. And so I would do a social video that would get amplified, where I would make a bold call of the week. Like, listen, don't be a chicken in fantasy football. Fortune favors the bold. Here's a bold call. Make this call. Lead the chicken to KFC. And so that worked out really well, and they were very happy with the results of that. So I just think, but again, that was sort of like we spoke the language, if you will. We did 11 because there are 11 herbs and spices. Like we had 11 like draft pick, like what I'm trying to figure out exactly how we did it, but like the 11 herbs and spices of a good fantasy draft. And then we had a whole draft kit so there's an example.
Do you have any examples of campaigns that you've worked on recently that you'd want to talk about? Don't want to put you on the spot if you can't think of any.
No, yeah. I think recently one that worked really well for us was when we teamed up with Tinder. So we did a big deal with Tinder. They were trying to get out their festival mode, which was just to meet people when you're at a music festival or concert venues, and you have the same style of music, same sense of music. You all are able to meet up and go and enjoy that concert together, right? So when we went down to Stagecoach, which was a country music festival, we were able to throw on a huge Wild West themed party, and had all these different influencers that I was friends with and that I know just from being in the world out to the Stagecoach event, and everyone's dressed up in the cowboy outfits and whatnot, and using festival mode throughout the weekend. So we were able to bring a lot of attention to it just through a bunch of different social media influencers posting about the Tinder festival mode, and then as well have all the content from the party and the people at the event all weekend meeting up with different people and having fun. So that was really cool. And then we set up 2 random strangers on a date with the festival mode as well. So that was awesome.
That's fun.
It's very cool. One that just occurred to me, which is probably a better answer even than the KFC thing, is that we did something with Bud Light this year. And so I do a thing, if you've been following me for 10 years, you're aware of this, but I do a thing every Monday night where I just say, okay, what do you need tonight? Like, you've had your fantasy matchup and now there's only one game left. And so what do you need tonight to win your matchup? What's your Monday night miracle, your hashtag Monday night miracle? And so Bud Light came in, and it always gets great engagement, and people reply to me saying, this is what I need tonight. I'm like, put it out into the universe, manifest it happening. And so we did a thing this year where we just said, I sent out the exact same tweet, but I said hey, and if it comes true, my friends at Bud Light are going to, send you beer and merch. And so then it became even more, everyone wanted to put into, here's what I need for my Monday night miracle. So, and then, and Bud Light came, and, their social team found people that whatever it is they needed ended up happening. And, and they got great social play out of that as well. And so they were thrilled with the brand. And so that, to me, that's another way where you're speaking the language, and just a really good brand integration, whether you're trying to say, hey, please buy Bud Light,
So time for maybe 2 more questions. Go ahead back there.
Josh, I was wondering on the BFF Barstool deal, and I'm not talking about how much or whatever, but on the business side of that, was this a deal where they sign you and you're paid a salary, they get to sell as many Josh Richards ad reads as they want, or because obviously you're your own brand, or was there a rev share, or how did you and your team work that?
Yeah. So with that deal, I was really concerned about owning IP on that podcast. With everything I do, I want to make sure that I own more on the back end than I do necessarily on the front. And with the growth of BFFs, I think that was probably the right decision because it's scaled pretty well. But yeah, so that's an IP split with me and BFFs, and then as well with the ad reads and alongside, but it's not a salary pay.
Any final question?
I want to know.
Nope. All right, we got one more. Here we go.
Yeah, just, you guys obviously have, built up a pretty huge following on both sides. When was there like a moment that you guys were like, we got something? When was it that kind of clicked?
Yeah, I think for me it was when I was 17 and we just wrapped on a social media tour we did, which is essentially a meet and greet tour. You're going around and meeting people. They're taking pictures and whatnot. But that was the first time ever I had seen my audience in front of my face. I, read comments and saw likes, but I think it's very different when you put a face to those likes and comments. So that was the first time to me when I was like, wow, we are having people travel from 5 hours out of state or 10 hours out of state just to come and take a photo. Like, there's a lot of care here for what we are doing, and this is just the beginning. We're just young kids, so how do we turn this into an entire empire? And I think that's really when I started leading into going and building out the Crosscheck Studios and media brand.
Answer for me is twofold. The first one is 2008. I'd been at ESPN for about a year and a half, and I was trying to convince ESPN that they needed to put more resources into fantasy football. We're underserving this audience. It's a massive audience, and it can be monetized in a much bigger way than we currently are. And so we did a preseason fantasy football party at Brother Jimmy's, which is like a barbecue place there in New York. And as we pull up, I see a line around the block. And I'm like, is Springsteen in town or something? Like, what's this line for? Good God, are we going to be able to get into the bar? And they're like, dude, the line is for the bar. It's for you. It's for this fantasy full draft party where I was going to go and just like sort of give advice. And, so that was kind of a blown away thing. And then the other thing is that this is, it's a fun story and it allows me to name drop as well. But in 2010, I get a call and the guy says, hey, Matthew, big fan of yours. My league, we all love you. We'd love you to come by our draft and hang out and just sort of give advice on our picks, roast us a little bit. And I said, listen, dude, it's in New York in August. And I'm like, yeah, listen, I just don't come to random people's drafts. I appreciate it, but I'm super busy. I'm happy to do like a video for your league or something like that. And he's like, well, it's for Jay-Z's league. And I'm like, what time do you need me?